Have you ever felt alienated? After you've gotten your divorce and you have been just alienated against for no reason, and your former spouse is just giving you the blues. So today on the Father Show, we're going to have a specialist that's going to be talking about father's rights and what you can do if you ever feel alienated against. All right, stay tuned. Hey, welcome to the Father Show, and my name is Mike Thompson, and we are here today, and we're going to be talking about being alienated when you've gone through a divorce. And we have a specialist here today to talk about it, and she can give you some pointers on how and what you can do if you've been alienated against. Now, our guest today is a owner and legal strategist, Carrie S. Schultz, Esquire, and she is certified by the Supreme Court of New Jersey as a matrimonial law attorney and practices exclusively in the area of divorce and family law. And throughout her career, Ms. Schultz has been a frequent lecturer, moderator, and panelist in matrimonial law related seminars for the New Jersey Institute for Continual Legal Education. And she has also received a recognition on avvo.com for more than 5 consecutive years, beginning in 2014. She was also selected in 2014 as top 40 under 40 New Jersey family law attorneys by the National Trial Lawyers and national rank top 10 under 40 by the National Academy of Family Law Attorneys. In 2016, she was awarded membership to the Lawyers of Distinction, which is only available to the top 10 of attorneys in the state of New Jersey. She was added to the list, the top 10 best female attorneys, by the American Institute of Family Law Attorneys. She was commended as a renowned attorney by the National League of Renowned Attorneys and the firm Mr. Men's Right Divorce and Family Law of New Jersey by Schultz Associates, LLC, and was credited by the Better Business Bureau. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome an esteemed colleague, and well, not my colleague because I'm no lawyer, but she is an excellent attorney, and I'm glad to have her here so that she can give us some great ideas on what alienation is and what we can do about it when we are being alienated against. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Carrie S. Schultz, Esquire. Carrie, how you doing today?
Hi, hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to everyone and get this issue to the forefront.
Yeah, I'm very. This is really close to me because in my first divorce, I went through this,
Yeah.
for years, where I was alienated and and made to go through some hoops that really wasn't necessary. I mean, in a nutshell, my former wife had the court thinking that I was a problem when it was actually
Right,
her being the problem. And I
right.
know I've talked to a lot of different men, around the world, and they've experienced the same thing. And so when we talked and we, talked about doing a show about alienation, I thought it was excellent because I know a lot of men go through this, and I'm sure women do as well. Matter of fact, I know they do. So, because us men, we're not all of that innocent all the time,
True.
but but having you and being that you are Mr. Men's Right, um, in part of your law firm, that is huge for me. And it really caught my eye. And I wanted to make sure that we got you on the show to talk about it. So I'm going to shut up a little bit. I want you to probably give your expertise, well, not your expertise, but your special, and and you can really tell what it is and how it works. So what does it mean
Great.
to be alienated against in the eye of the law?
So, Mike, before we get to that, the story you told is not uncommon, unfortunately, and I see it daily in my practice and with my clients. And
Mm-hmm.
really, where this comes into play is with the children, right? The relationship between you and your spouse is becoming an end, and the emotions are running high, and people are scared. They're scared, they're fearful, um, and they act out. And one of the ways, unfortunately, the primary way that people act out is thinking that the children are the leverage,
Yes.
thinking that if I can just align the children with me and against the other spouse, I'm going to have a leg up in this litigation and get what I want.
Right.
And the unfortunate part of that entire mindset, it really is a mindset, is that you're putting the children in the middle of this.
Mm-hmm.
And to hurt, for the sole intention to hurt the other parent.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the only person that ultimately, or people, I should say, that ultimately come out of this hurt are the children. And
Absolutely.
we're adults, we can get over things. It's emotional, it's turmoil, it may take a long time, but we have a different intellectual capacity than a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's the thing, right? So we know that this happens in divorce cases. We know that it happens preparing for a divorce case.
Mm-hmm.
We know that it may be happening years before a divorce is even ever on anybody's radar. So one of the things that I want to talk about is how do we prevent this? How do we at least do damage control before it reaches a level that is catastrophic, right?
Right.
Um, and one of the things, obviously they always say, awareness is the first step. First being aware that this is happening, and then figuring out what can I do to stop it, prevent it, minimize it. Um, and and on that topic in and of itself, one of the things that I always tell my clients is, look, at the end of the day, we're not going to be changing your spouse's personality. We can't
Mm-hmm.
change your spouse's mindset,
Mm-hmm.
especially coming from you. You think she's going to listen to anything you have to say? In fact, if you said something, she'd probably do exactly the opposite,
Are you
right?
right?
So when my clients try to teach their spouse what they should and shouldn't do, it usually gets worse, not better. And so I tend to guide them to say, look, it is not your job, it is not your responsibility to try to change your spouse. If I could change anyone as a lawyer, I mean, I wouldn't be a lawyer. I'd be sitting in Barbados on a beach, drinking my margarita, because I'd have a lot of money as the person who could change a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So what we first have to recognize, I think, is that we're not going to change the person. We're not going to change your spouse. So that means we have to maneuver around the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when we maneuver around the situation, first we're going to be aware of the situation. And then what can we pragmatically do to maneuver around that situation to help ourselves not get alienated from the children and
Yeah.
maintain that bond and that relationship. I think we can all agree, and there are studies out there, it is imperative that the children have the best of both of you, the best
Right.
mother that you can be, and the
Right.
best father that you can be. Having one without the other is there's many studies out there that it's just not beneficial for the children long term.
No. No.
No.
I agree 100%. And I know with my own experience, um, my daughter was 5 when her mother and I got divorced, and she's almost 30 now, and I can still
Mm,
see the effect that it had on
yes.
her for
Yes.
her, what her mom did. And I really don't, I'm telling you, and I don't think she's going to watch it, but I mean, my daughter wise, because I've never said anything in regards to it other than, no, that's not what happened. And that's all I'm going to say.
Right. Right.
But,
And you know what? You were right. You were right to do that. I mean, we're sitting here saying, look, it's not right for the mom and the wife to put the kids in the middle. And so you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because you
mm-hmm,
have one parent saying disparaging things about you to the child, but you feel because you're a good person and a good parent, well, wait a minute, I probably shouldn't stoop to that level and do the same thing, because sometimes it does make matters worse. And look, I usually leave all that stuff up to the psychologists of the world
mm-hmm,
and the therapists to help guide people as to how to manage all of that.
mm-hmm.
Um, what I do know, and by the way, just as a side note, I know a lot of my male clients are sometimes they poo-poo a going into therapy or having family therapy or
Mm-hmm.
co-parenting therapy. And
Yeah,
I
I
just
bet.
want to tell you guys, yeah, I mean, I just want to tell you guys, like, it's okay. Go get some help. Go get some guidance. It's at the end of the day, if this is about your children, then I say, it takes a village. And
Yeah.
it's certainly a conversation can never hurt in that regard. So I don't want anyone to necessarily feel ashamed or embarrassed that you have to seek outside counsel, in terms of a therapist or a counseling session, because
Yeah.
that's appropriate in these kinds of scenarios.
Well,
Totally.
and I agree with you again, and that's one reason we, kind of do what we do is I want men to be empowered to know what
Yes.
they can do um, to eliminate some problems that they may be having in their life or their kids may be having it. And that's even why we do the resource program, because on our website you can go to the resources and you can get counseling, you can get an attorney, and nobody knows you've been there. I don't know, and we
Right.
don't have cookies on the website or anything, so they can get a hold of you without us even knowing about it. All they got to do is just go to the website, they find your information, they call you, they do it. Because I know men, we hate to get any help, and we don't ask for help until our back is against the wall, and that's just
I
way
know.
too late.
You're
Because
you're you're 1,000% correct. Way
yeah,
too late. Way too
yeah,
late. Yeah.
yeah, we,
And
no, go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. And that's the whole thing, is being ahead of the game, right? I always analogize it to like a sporting event. You want to be on the offensive instead of the defensive. So getting ahead of this is critical. And the minute you start it seeing happening, you're going to want to take those steps um, to start to prevent it, minimize it, de-escalate the situation, before it's way too late and you're just climbing an uphill battle. So, again, to your point, and I love when you agree with me. You're agreeing with me a lot. I wish my husband would agree with me this much. um, um, right, him stopping for directions is like, so I totally understand. I
Well,
totally
we're
understand,
still
and which
men
is why,
now.
yeah, you're still men, and I get it, which is why, I help with my clients. I help to facilitate. We work with a lot of counselors in whatever dynamic that needs to be. I refer people to them. They refer people to me. We work collaboratively to
Mm-hmm.
help get you. I mean, there's the legal aspect of it, but I'm fully aware that there's the emotional, psychological aspect of this as
Mm-hmm.
well, not only for my clients individually, but for the family. And part of being a good attorney, I think most good attorneys would look at this as a holistic approach. Yes, I'm advocating for the father. Yes, I'm advocating for the husband. Yes, we're going to protect your legal rights. But while we're talking about that, I'm thinking about, let's assume your child is 5 years old when this is all unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about what is life going to look like for you guys as a family when your child graduates high school?
Mm-hmm.
Can we sit in the same room together?
Mm-hmm.
Is she going to want both of you there? What about
Yeah.
marriages and grandkids and all of that good stuff, right? So, we're thinking way long term in order to back it up and
Right.
figure out what we have to do today to preserve that relationship and make you and your spouse and your wife and the mother of your child effectively co-parent. Look, You don't have to be best friends, but you got to figure out a way to coexist to do what's right for your children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where lawyers come in, and that's where counselors and outside help come in too.
So, what would you tell a father that didn't know, or say that through the divorce she hid all that? She didn't, get angry. She didn't really go after you no more than anybody else would. But after the divorce, after all the lawyers been gone about their business and gone their way, and you're starting your life off as a new, then you start feeling alienated, and you're
Yeah.
noticing when the kids come over that they're saying certain things or they don't want to come over at all. um,
Yeah.
but what do you do at that point? How can you protect yourself, and how can you uh, let somebody else know that this is what's going on, and you need to watch out for it?
That is a fantastic question. So the minute you start seeing those things, you have to work off of the premise that something is fishy. You can't hold on to, well, maybe this is a passing fad. Well, maybe this is just a one-off. And look,
Mm-hmm.
there's always exceptions to the rule, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I operate under an assumption that it's not a passing fad, that there's something, maybe, maybe something deeper going on here. So number one, be way more vigilant. But number two, open up a dialogue with your spouse or with your ex-spouse. Shoot an email out if you're concerned about the confrontation, or a text message. And obviously for litigation purposes, if it ends up down that road, you're going to want to save all those items. But a very benign communication. Hey, whatever her name is, I'm hearing A, B, and C from our child. Um, could you tell me what that's about? I'm getting concerned. Go ahead and communicate what your concerns are. Don't go out and blaming anyone. We're just doing an investigation to see what actually is going on and where this is all coming from. Is it the child? Sometimes it is, I have to tell you. Or is there something else going on behind the scenes with your ex-spouse?
Yeah.
And listen, usually, and these are, generalities, but usually this happens right around the time the father starts to date someone else,
Oh,
starts to move on with his life,
yes,
maybe
indeed.
gets remarried or has a new baby. Then we start to see what I very non-legally call shenanigans. Okay. Um, then we start to see shenanigans all of the sudden appear. All of a sudden, the kid doesn't want to go to dad's house. All of a sudden, the kid is sick again. All of a sudden, mom schedules an extracurricular activity over dad's time. Um, all of the sudden, just abnormal things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kid is coming over when the child does come over, they're starting to say things, such as, well, mommy said that you don't have time for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy said that, you've moved on. And those, depending on the age of your child, I mean, if your child's 17, I mean, that's one thing. But if your
Yeah.
child is in the younger years, you got to sit and wonder to yourself, how does an even 8, 9, 10, or 12-year-old come up with that saying? That
Mm-hmm.
that didn't, come from their independent thinking. And even if it did, I'm not quite sure they understand the implication of what they're saying or
Mm-hmm.
what they're feeling. And that's when you really have to take a pause and say, okay, my child may be going through some emotional turmoil here, regardless of how it happened or where it started. I think we need to address the situation. And of course, we want to address the situation to help your child have be mentally um, good, right? Be mentally
Mm-hmm.
healthy. And we want to start to protect the situation so that it doesn't worsen. So, my advice, I mean, a long winded way to answer your question, get a hold of legal counsel. Obviously, if you're in New Jersey, you can call me, but you don't have to. There's plenty of wonderful New Jersey legal attorneys. Start to have a conversation about what your options are to get ahead of the game.
Okay.
You may, like I said, the emails and communications with your spouse, you may want to start opening a dialogue, save
Mm-hmm.
all of those items, talk to your lawyer. Maybe a lawyer needs to send out a nice but more stern
Stern,
letter
yeah.
to your spouse saying, "Hey, cut the crap," you know. Um, and if it escalates and if it doesn't stop, then of course you certainly have recourse. I know in every state, no matter where you are in the country, there's always recourse in the family division for post-divorce issues. You
Mm-hmm.
can always seek the intervention of a judge to help put a stop to this. Obviously, you'd have to present what the history is. You'd have to present why you think this is happening, and propose a solution. You really want to propose a solution to the judge. I just don't put a problem in front of them and make them figure it out on their own.
Yeah, cause see,
Say, look, here's how I want to solve it.
yeah, cause when I was going through it, I didn't know that, and we're talking about 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Um, I didn't know any of this. I was just kind of trying to deal with it. I tried to push it away, which I know a lot of men do. You know, we try to avoid it, we try to push it away, and just go on with our life. But I know that, my daughter was being told certain things. I know that she was being abused, and I went through social service. And I
right.
remember calling in one day and I said, look, my daughter is being mentally and physically abused. I'm not asking you to get into a custody battle with me. I'm just asking you to get her mother some help. And,
Yeah,
that's all I want. And, they told me, well, no. And if you don't continue to report these incidents, then when something major happens, you won't get the child either. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're
right.
telling me that I have to wait till something major happens? And,
Yeah,
they were like, yep. And so that's what I went through. And this is why I wanted to do this show, because I want other men to know, don't do what I did. Like you just mentioned, get your attorney that you dealt with, or a new attorney, call you if you're out in the New Jersey area, and get the help. And now I did keep all of my records. When I had to go to court to defend myself, I have all that. I have emails, I have, text messages, I have all that. But I didn't really know what to do with it,
right,
other than
right.
if you really push the issue, I knew to bring it to court. But it never really came to that. I ended up getting custody of her. I think she was about 11 or 12. And so uh, that's, mine worked that way. But, I had a friend of mine that went through something similar, and he was fighting for his daughter. And that's actually how we became best friends, because we were fighting for our daughters, side by side in a sense. Um, and the stuff that he went through. And so he was, keeping his stuff organized, and he had an attorney that he worked with that would help him go to court, so he can do it pro se, and he would go to court on his own, but
Yeah,
she would kind of guide him through what he needed.
yes,
So I
yes,
really wanted a lot of these men and I, to understand what their rights are and what they can do to protect themselves and their children, because you mentioned it earlier. Ultimately, your children are the ones that are going to be affected. And as I mentioned earlier, I can still see the effects of what happened with my daughter, and she's almost 30 years old, and she's finally
yeah,
starting to come out of it.
yeah.
But it took a long
And Mike,
time.
I want to thank you for sharing that because it is beyond true. And on my website, you can see a little bit of my personal history. I, in essence, was your daughter as well, and I learned a lot of things later in my life that were shocking to me, which is why ultimately I decided to morph my entire business into this area. But to your other point, yeah, being an ostrich and digging your head in the sand does never makes anything better. It really doesn't. And so, it bears repeating that you really have to get ahead of yourself. You really have to get ahead of the situation. Um, and listen, you know, feel free to reach out to me. If I have resources as well, I have a wide network across the country of attorneys that I could refer you to that are experienced in this area. I always say, look, don't worry about the money, about what it's going to cost for an attorney. Have a conversation. There is no harm in a conversation. You don't have to hire that attorney, but you're going to get some guidance. You're going to get some good value out of that conversation. Even if it's a couple of $100 you have to pay to talk to that lawyer for an hour, do it. Because I think it's going to expand your knowledge, expand your mind, and give you some direction on how you can approach what's happening at that current moment. Um, but you were 1,000% correct. I more times than I wish to even mention, I have clients, male clients come in to me, good, wonderful, loving fathers, and they tell me they are ready to get divorced, um, or have been divorced, and their wife is just a nightmare to deal with. They're just uncooperative on a good day. And they kind of end up shrugging their shoulders and saying, "Well, I guess I'm just going to lose my kids. Oh, well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just
Right.
going to give up,"
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And I just that's such a disservice to your child. It's a disservice to you. And you really don't have to think that way. Get some help. And to your point, to your other point about engaging family services, yes. Even in the state of New Jersey, if you are aware or have good reason to believe that your child is being abused, you actually have a legal obligation to call the authorities to
Mm-hmm.
investigate.
Mm-hmm.
And because you now know of it, okay?
Yeah.
Especially with physical abuse. Um, so they will do the child protective services in whatever state you are. I'm sure they do their independent investigation. They talk to you. They talk to the child. They go through a process. Not in New Orleans.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in New Orleans, so we won't put New
Oh,
Orleans
okay.
under the bus.
Okay. Don't
But
put New Orleans under the bus.
yeah, but it was still, I would make the phone calls, and and they said, okay, well, we're gonna, go out there and visit. Well, they'll call the
Yeah.
mom and say, hey, we're coming over, and I know that because my daughter would say, oh, mom cleaned up today, and I'm like, uh
Yeah.
huh. So she
Uh huh.
knew they were coming, so it wasn't. You didn't see really what the home was like because you called and got them prepared. So she got the kids
Sure.
prepared. And,
Sure.
and the thing that I don't agree with in how they, do this investigation is, you're sitting there, at least in my case, they're sitting there with the kid in the home with the mom, and you think the kid is going to say anything negative or anything
No.
about the mom while she's
No.
sitting right there? No, come on.
No, and you're right. And you know what? Here's at the end of the day, I don't think any legal system in any state is perfect, and it certainly has it. We have that situation here in Jersey as well all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have better caseworkers than others that do different kinds of
Mm-hmm.
investigations. They don't give them notice. And then you always have the problem of, is the child coached beforehand?
Right.
Um, you always have those dynamics running as a theme. And so again, that's where lawyers come in that can start to dig deeper and question the methodology of how this is going down.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say also, to some extent, what I've been finding in New Jersey, some courts, they don't really operate from a preventative measure, right? They,
Mm-hmm.
like what you had said earlier, well, tell me after it happens. Well, wait a minute. After it happens, it's too late. I mean, the
Right.
damage is done, and now we've got to backtrack to fix it all. Um, and I think that's where, you know, especially with your friend that said he has counsel, approaching and presenting your information to a court and how you present that information to a court
Mm-hmm.
is really critical to trying to get them to see that if we don't do something now, it's not going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I have plenty of clients that go into court by themselves and they just throw a whole bunch of stuff at the court. here's like a slew of text messages and it's disorganized and and what happens? The judges check out, right? They're good
Mm,
people, they're good judges, but the way that you're disseminating the information is too chaotic for them to really understand what's going
okay.
on. And
Okay.
so there is the difference between a science and an art, right? That's what
Right.
lawyers are here for. It's an art to give the presentation to the judge and make them really understand why we're here. Why are we here? Why are we asking for your help if we need it? What's going to happen if you don't help us? And
So
look,
you got to
I'm
be
not saying that
prepared.
every judge is going to agree. Yeah, you got
Mm-hmm.
to be prepared. And not every judge is going to agree with it. But if you
Right.
have to go back a second or third time, then you can wave your I told you so flag because you had said it earlier that this is what was going to happen. And if it play, God forbid, if it plays out that way, you can say, well, we told you so. Now you better do something. Like
Mm-hmm.
now this is, where the rubber hits the road, right?
Yeah.
Um, but look, at the end of the day, we don't even want it to escalate that far. We really want to get in there early, fast and early to try to manage the situation so it doesn't come to that because I don't want your children or your child to have that emotional turmoil for that long until something ultimately does happen, right? You
Yeah.
have to get a court involved. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the worst place for everyone to be in.
Yeah.
So so like I said, talk to someone, talk to a lot of people, just get
Yeah.
knowledge is power. Yeah, your resources are fabulous. Go to your resource page, reach out to people, just get information, play 007 a little bit, get some
Yeah.
information.
Well, this is one reason we do the show is because I want to empower more men so that they know what they can do to protect themselves and their kids. Uh,
Yeah.
this is hugely important because I know I've gone through it, and I, have talked to a lot of men that have gone through it. So I love having that information out there. So, and one one reason people ask and say, "Well, why'd you even have the resources and you didn't make it monetarily?" And I said, "Well, I don't want a man to have any excuse not to get the help
Yes.
that they need, so we
Yes.
don't charge for it or nothing." And because it's not about me getting rich or the organization getting
Right.
rich. It's not about that. It's about making sure the men get the help that they need, and having people like you on the show really empowers the men so they can know what they can do, who they can contact, and that they, you know, one, they're not even going through this alone because, I know I've gone through it. I know a lot of men have gone through it, and there is help for you, and you can get the help that you need. You just have to go out and get it and search for it, talk to the right people, and make sure your kids are okay.
Yeah, and you make a good point. I mean, hope is not a plan. I live by that motto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hope is not a plan. Hoping it's just going to go away. Hoping your ex-spouse or your current spouse is just going to change. That's not, you can't rely on any of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, from a lawyer's angle, like what you need to understand is when you do start to involve attorneys, it's always better for us to get in there at the beginning. We can
Okay.
do a lot if we're in there early. But if you're coming to us after the fact, we're not magicians, right? We can't just poof make everything better. We're going to
Okay.
try our hardest.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can get in early and start to set the tone of the case and tell you what to do, what not to do is probably even more important because you're going to be just as much under the microscope as she's going to be.
Oh, yes,
So,
indeed.
when I'm telling you, to send these text messages and open a dialogue, you better be on your best behavior because bet your bottom dollar that communication is going to be submitted to the judge from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So, temper your tone, temper your language. None of that matters. It's just trying to get to the facts. So we as attorneys also guide you through that, what you should and shouldn't do to set yourself up for success at the litigation phase.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, earlier is better than later. Now,
Okay.
that's to say that if you're sitting there watching this and saying, oh no, I might be too late, you're never too late. But just know that if you have an opportunity, if you have a window of clarity and an opportunity, go ahead and get those resources early, because
Hmm.
I think you'll find that there's a lot more options that everyone can help you with when you get ahead of it.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Well, Carrie, unfortunately, that is our time for today. But
Okay,
I'm so glad that you came on the show and provided this information
thank
because,
you.
like I said, I know it's huge and I know it's something that, men need to know that there is
Yes,
a solution to a problem
and
that
they're
you
not
have.
alone.
And you're not alone.
Yeah,
You're not alone.
not
So
alone.
don't stand there and act like you're alone. And I actually had a friend that I worked with that knew I was doing this. And he calls me up on a Friday and asking for help to go to court on Monday. And I'm like, really? Like you said, you want to
We get
get
that
in
all the
early.
time.
Yeah. And he was like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't do much for you. This is the weekend and, you got to be in court on Monday morning. Why didn't you contact me before? And I could have, directed him to somebody. But as you mentioned,
Sure.
get the help early. Don't wait to the
Yes.
last minute. And I know as men, we tend to wait till our back is up against the wall before we ask for help. And that's what I want us to stop doing, because your kids really need it. So,
Thank you.
uh, so
Thank you.
you can tell I'm this touches my heart very much, and I'm very passionate about it because I went through it, and and it irritates me to no end, and I know I made some mistakes in my process through this, but I didn't know to go get some help. I didn't know what to do. I was just acting like you mentioned earlier, out of anger and reacting instead of proacting.
Yes.
And that was the worst thing that I could have done for myself. Thank God
Hmm.
it didn't affect my daughter, but it did affect me. So,
Right.
but I want you to
And
let
we
the
yeah,
audience know how can they get a hold of you and your firm because I think what
sure.
you do, I wish you could do it all over the United States because I know
Well,
a lot of
you
men
never
could
know.
use you. That's a hint.
Hint, hint, hint. Yeah. Sure. So thank you again, Mike, for having me. This is fantastic. Any place that I can get this message out is where I want to be. So you can go to my website at mensrightsdivorcelaw.com. My phone number is 201-880-9770. You can also look on schultzfamilylaw.com. I just have two websites that go to one place. But and of course, if you're not in the state of New Jersey, that's okay. Call my office. Like I said, I have attorneys that I am, my colleagues across the country that I could refer you to get you that assistance. Obviously, free of charge. That we don't, just like Mike, we don't charge you. We just want to get you the help that you need. So feel free to give us a call, or shoot us an email. An email is the team at schultzfamilylaw.com. And you can see it's my last name, familylaw.com. So feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. And listen, guys, I wish you the best of luck. Please just get ahead of this and don't think that you don't have options, because you do.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much, and I'm really glad that you were able to be on the show and to provide your specialist and give some information out because it's needed and you know it already. I don't have to tell you. You already know this. That's why. So thank you again, and I'd love to have you back on the show once again to
Definitely.
we'll talk about some other things because it's even though I ran over because I really didn't we didn't really get to hit everything, and that's okay. That just leaves room for more. So
Exactly.
thank you again,
Thank you.
and we'd love to have you on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today, and I really thank you for being a part of this show, and I really hope that it helped somebody out there that is going through this or about to go through this. And as Carrie mentioned, get a head start on it. But mothers, I really hope you listen so that you understand that you might be trying to get back at your former spouse, but you're also damaging your kids. And I can tell you from personal experience, that damage will stay with that child for a long time. And our friend Carrie just mentioned it. She was involved in the same thing, so she knows that it will, hurt for a long time. So please don't do it. Just learn to work together. You've gone your separate ways. That's just the way it is, and enjoy your life. Life is too short to be angry and trying to get back at somebody else. So enjoy yourself, have fun, and be the best person that you can be. So if you do need additional help, one, you can find Carrie's information. You can rewind the tape and you can find Carrie's information there, but you can also find her on our website. Just go to the Father Show with MikeThompson.com and look under resources, and you can pick out New Jersey, and her information is there. You can also find attorneys in your area that you can talk to. And if not, like I said, Carrie is more than willing to help you get that information. And we just want you to have it. We just want to make sure that you get the help that you need, and you're not, going into something blindly. But we also say, if you like what we are hearing on the show, please subscribe to it and click on the like button and the bell button, and so you can always get notified of when we're having a show. And we do one every week, so you can always see us there. But we're going to enjoy having you, and we'll have a guest next week. And in the meantime, be blessed, have a wonderful time, and stay safe. God bless you.